Hello guys, welcome to another video. Rimuru x Eminence in Shadow by elite3532. Chapter 9 BTWI won't post for a few days since I have to travel all the way to the capital to attend the wedding of a cousin I have never met. Or maybe I'll write in the train, well, if I post then that mean I wasn't lazy, if I don't post mean I was resting. On this good lecture. 3rd POV the next day, Rimuru was standing in the tribune watching a training spar between Rose Oriana and his little brother. They held the event in some sort of small tournament simulation in the academy arena. And this same fight was taking a rather spectacular turn as Sid was basically one-shotted but still got up, showing his great determination to everyone. Watching, Rimuru couldn't help but chuckle at his little brother's antics. He was the only able to see the trick Sid pulled, which was to use fake blood and simulate big injuries. Rimuru. Seriously. Sometimes I wonder if I really know him. Sighing to himself, he left after the ending where the referee had to force Sid to withdraw before anything bad happened. He had other things to do, which is the much-awaited reunion between elven aunt and niece. It was finally the day as Rimuru invited both and waited for them at an isolated location so no one could spy on them. Soon enough Alpha arrived first. She came by and noticed Rimuru laying on a tree. Rimuru. Yo. Alpha. Good evening Rimuru-sama. Bowing her head slightly, she scanned the surroundings and saw no one. Understanding that the one she was supposed to meet isn't here yet, she just went and stood beside Rimuru. A silence then set its place as neither Rimuru or Alpha bothered starting the conversation. It continued like this until the sound of crackling branches was heard. Alpha turned her eyes toward the source and looked confused as her eyes met with Beatrix's. Beatrix. I'm her. As she was about to salute Rimuru, her words caught up in her throat, realizing the young elf beside Rimuru. Blonde hair and blue eyes. Just like her sister, Beatrix just couldn't believe what she was seeing. Her frozen body only started moving after a long minutes. She took a few steps, stopping a few inches away from Alpha, whose guard was up now. Rimuru. Let me do the introduction. Alpha, this is Beatrix, also known as the War Goddess, and Beatrix, this young lady is Alpha, your niece. Alpha. What? Niece? Her eyes widening. It seems Alpha had no idea that she still has family left. Her past is unknown, as the further known of her was when Sid saved the girl from possession. But it seems she didn't even have knowledge of her own origin. Beatrix. There is no doubt. You look just like your mother when she was young. Tearing up a little, Beatrix quickly took the young elf in her arm. Emotion dropped unnaturally from her usual innocent and imperturbable face. Alpha was still digesting the information, but after feeling the warmth of her aunt and a sort of familial connection, she returned the hug. Having no words coming out of her mouth, she could only listen to her aunt's light sobs. Beatrix. I've searched for you for so long, please forgive me, I should have been there earlier. On the side, Rimuru smiled warmly and decided to give them some space. After all, he had nothing to do in a familiar matter. Rimuru. I'll go ahead, so join me when you're done. Earning a nod from Beatrix, Rimuru left the two to talk. He walked through the forest, which was the chosen location, and waited right before the border between city and forest. The sun was already setting down, leaving an orange atmosphere. Along that, it's at this time where couples usually go out. Rimuru could see many of them walking through this road surrounded by trees, quite a romantic location for a walk date. Closing his eyes, Rimuru just laid on a tree and waited for the girls to finish. On the other side, Alpha and Beatrix calmed down a little and were now sitting in the grass in an awkward silence. They didn't know what to do or say. It bothered Alpha a little, as this whole situation was something that never crossed her mind. As for Beatrix, she just studied her niece's face and smiled at how similar she is to her mother. Beatrix. So, what did you become? Finally breaking the silence, Alpha pondered for a moment. She didn't know if she could trust her. She is quite the influential person after all. Alpha. I fight in the shadow. Beatrix. Fight in the shadow? What does this mean? It wasn't in her habit to trust people that easily, but Alpha felt a strange connection with Beatrix. This made her relax a bit, and ultimately she decided to tell her the truth. Alpha. Before I tell you, could you answer a question of mine? Beatrix. Sure. Alpha. What happened to my mother? I tried to find her again but couldn't. Beatrix. Oh, that. Looking down, Beatrix, after sharing information with Rimuru, had uncovered the whole truth behind her sister's death. Beatrix. A few years ago. I had heard that my sister died from an illness after losing her daughter in a kidnapping. Alpha. Illness? Beatrix. Yes. That day I made a vow to find and protect you. Alpha. I see, I was indeed kidnapped, but later. Beatrix. You were a victim of possession, right? Alpha. Huh. Looking at her aunt confused, she didn't expect her to know that. But then another question was raised: how much does Beatrix know? Beatrix. I will tell you the truth now. My sister was never ill, nor was your kidnapping random. Alpha. What do you mean, Beatrix? I had stayed in contact with Rimuru for years now. We had shared information and deduced what we could. After inspection I discovered a few things. Alpha. Then, you know about the cult of Beatrix, Diabolas? Yes, I know. Sighing, Beatrix dropped her hand on her lap and bit her lips. Beatrix. Your mother was taken out and used for some sort of experiment. The best I could think of is because of our blood. Alpha. So it's true that the blood inside our veins are. Beatrix. The same blood as the hero Oliver, one of the legendary heroes. This was just a supposition and theory that Alpha hoped to confirm in a few weeks at the Holy Festival tournament. But there she got her answer. Beatrix has a large network for information. She might appear carefree and all, but inside is quite the cunning woman. Beatrix. That aside, you showed signs of possession, so the cult had you taken out since you were no use for them. But the same couldn't be said from your mother. Alpha. When didn't they take her? When she was younger? Your mother. Beatrix. Rimuru had supposed that they were waiting for us to have children. Alpha. I see. The logic behind is that once done with the experiment and extraction of their blood, the subject dies. And so the blood supply is limited. They waited for the host to have children and hoped that they weren't hit by possession, so they could repeat the process over and over. Alpha was judged possessed, so deemed useless. Beatrix. Now it's your turn. Can you confirm all I had said about the cult? Alpha. Alpha didn't realize, but both Beatrix and Rimuru know way too much. What is more terrifying is that both of them arrived there with just deduction. Alpha. Yes. The cult of Diabolas cares after the blood of the descendants of the heroes. Beatrix. The descendant of the heroes, huh? Does this mean the beast man and human have descendants too? Alpha. As a matter of fact, every possessed is a descendant. Beatrix. That much? This was quite the shocking news. That history was altered, so the descendants of the heroes became the worthless and trash of society. Alpha. I am part of Shadow Garden. Our goal is to destroy the cult of Diabolas. Continuing and talking about herself, Beatrix was happy to see their bond grow. She quietly listened to Alpha narrating her life after being saved by Sid. Most of it is the operation of Shadow Garden against the cult, and surely after hearing her, Beatrix made up her mind. Alpha. This is why, if you hope to bring me back to the Elven Kingdom, then renounce. My purpose in life now is to bring the cult to its end. Beatrix. You grew up into a strong woman. I'm sure your mother would be proud. Alpha. Huh? Not expecting the praise, Alpha blushed a little. Those words were simple yet full of warmth. Beatrix. But as your aunt, I can't let you fight something like the cult of Diabolas. I don't want to lose you after finally finding you. Alpha. Be you, Beatrix, but I also can't stop you, so. Opening her eyes, Beatrix stared right into Alpha's blue diamond eyes. A small tension formed around the atmosphere. Beatrix. I will join Shadow Garden. Alpha. What? Beatrix. I can't let the cult go around now that I know that much and what I want for my own future. I also wish to protect you, so this is the best path I can choose. Alpha. The war goddess and arguably strongest elf joining Shadow Garden. And what does she mean by future? The situation took an unexpected turn. As both elves stared at each other, the reply from Alpha will inevitably change a lot of things. Rimuru paused, staring at the dark sky filled with stars. I had waited for 2 hours now. It seemed like Beatrix and Alpha had a lot to catch on. Well, I can somehow understand. Aunt and niece relation is similar to siblings one, just a little less casual. I continued to stare at the sky, trying to entertain myself, when I felt the presence of someone approaching from behind. Smiling, I straightened my back and turned around to see Beatrix. It seemed they finished, and something about Beatrix changed. She had a cute smile plastered on her face. Compared to the smile I usually see, this one appear a lot more sincere. Rimuru. Done? Beatrix. Yes. Coming closer, I thought she was going to stop, but to my expectation she continued and took me in her arms. Beatrix. Thank you, you're the best thing that ever happened to me. Tightening the hug, I was a bit taller so she had her head buried in my chest. I smiled, overcoming my shock, and hugged back. For the first time, I felt my heart racing in an irregular pattern. I didn't quite understand this feeling, perhaps it's love, who knows. We stayed in this position for a few minutes, enjoying the calm and peaceful flowing wind. It was soon midnight, so no one was around to disturb us. Rimuru. We should get going. Stay here longer and we'll catch a cold. Beatrix. MMH. Nodding, she nudged her head in my chest before backing off. Her face still facing the ground, I could notice her ears shining deep red. Beatrix. Sorry. Rimuru. Don't mind it. I didn't really mind either. This is what I wanted to say, but the words didn't want to come out. Shortly after, we found yourself walking aimlessly in the city. Most of the shop were closed, but neither of us knew how to end this day. Personally, I didn't mind passing my time with Beatrix like that. I just realized how warm I felt around her. Beatrix. Rimuru. Rimuru. Yes. Beatrix. Do you think one day we will be able to live together? This question made me think deeply. This was basically a confession. My logical thinking told me to refuse, as it really isn't the right time to engage myself. But my heart says otherwise, and for this time only I decided to follow this heart of mine. Rimuru. Yes, I believe it can be. Beatrix. I see, I have to work a lot harder. This simple sentence confirmed a few things. I now knew that Beatrix discussed the subject of the cult with Alpha. And it seems that she is now ready to go against the cult. This also means that our theories are true. Thus a future for both of us isn't possible as long as the cult is present. If we ever had a child, both the poor kid and Beatrix would be hunted down. Beatrix. Just wait a few years, Rimuru. I'm still new to all these things, but after meeting my niece, I am convinced now. Rimuru. Is that so? She just nodded. We stopped walking and stared at each other with the street lamp as our only source of light. Beatrix then proceeded to swiftly approach and sealed my lips with her own. Time stopped as all my senses went on high alert. The taste of a sweet and tender aroma invaded my mouth as I lost all track of calm. My heart racing faster than it ever went. This kiss that went for only a few seconds appeared to be hours, if not days, for me. Beatrix. I never thought I would ever feel like that toward someone, but now I'm sure. I love you. Parting away, she confessed to me. My eyes grew larger as she gave me a last smile before running away in the opposite direction. I didn't know how to react and just stood there, my hand caressing my lips. Rimuru. I should leave too. Third POV that night, neither of them could actually sleep. It was a new kind of feeling for them, something that they have yet to understand, but love is only something that will bloom over time. The next day decided to take a day off to organize his thoughts. With that, he also wasn't present during the whole attack on the academy. To summarize the attack, a group of people disguised themselves as Shadow Garden and assaulted the academy. Their leader was later revealed as the chairman Lutheran Barnett, Sherry's father. This attack led to multiple consequences. The first one is that the group named Shadow Garden is now the #1 enemy of Midgar, with Shadow at their lead. Another consequence is Sherry's hate for Shadow. After using her knowledge to create an antidote against the artifact used during attack, an artifact that blocked the usage of magic, Sherry had run to check on her father, only to see the horrific scene of Shadow ending his pathetic life. Sadly, the little girl never learned the truth, thinking that Shadow is the darkest evil. But in reality, she was deceived all her life by her own father, who used her to analyze the artifact known as the Eyes of Avarice. She never knew that the one who killed her mother was the man that proclaimed to be her loving father. And without this hidden truth, all her hate and love went toward the same person, her last standing light being Sid, who offered chocolate and showed her how much he loved her. And the darkness that must be eliminated at all costs, Shadow, the killer of her father. Another one of those consequences is Princess Rose, who already showed interest in Sid after their spar. She had personally come to teach Sid's class and happened to be there the moment the attack started. Being reckless over her usage of magic, she was taken off guard by one of the villains, almost getting slashed. Only Sid was able to act and took the hit for her. Rose, realizing how much Sid was ready to sacrifice for her, developed more than simple feeling, a pure love and affection. The princess also managed to see with her own eyes Shadow Garden and Shadow in action, as they popped out of nowhere and saved the students. It was only a few hours later, after everything was settled down, that Rimuru came. He rushed as soon as he was notified, but it was already too late. The heir gritted his teeth seeing the burned-down academy, his blood boiling in anger. He wasn't here when needed. Certainly Sid was present, so it should be fine. But the duty to protect everyone is his. Claire wasn't there too, but this led to another question. Did the cult purposely attack knowing that he won't be there? Rimuru. The cult, huh? It seems a peaceful future won't be possible with them around. His eyes glowing red. Another factor entered the war in Shadow. Who will win Shadow Garden, the cult of Diabolas or the genius? Which one of them will happen a path to the future? It being full of darkness or light?